This is our Freedom Walk wall. So we did it for Freedom Walk, and like it just shows a bunch of people's like families. I don't personally have one up here, but I know a bunch of other people that do.
So my name is McKay Beatty, and this is my veteran, and this is my great grandpa, and his name is H.G. Tyson, and he served in the Vietnam War, and he was H.G. Tyson was a prisoner of war. He was captured in 1941. He is actually in the World War II, sorry. He is my great-grandpa. He is only 17, he's captured. I know my grandpa has one of his grenades that he used. It helps recognize all of the veterans that students here know.
Okay, I'm Jordan Jensen, and this is my great-great-uncle. His name's Clary Bramley, and like McKay's, he was in a prisoner of war in World War II, and he actually has a book about him called A Study in Valor, so I think that's pretty cool. It says he survived a Japanese death camp and the Bataan Death March. Him and some other prisoners of war made an American flag by hand, like that one, and he was in World War II.
The Wall of Honor is just for all the grades, well, 5th grade and 6th grade. Well, 5th grade, it's usually, but this year it's 6th grade too because of COVID. It's just to honor service members who have served in the military because they have done so much for us. It's just so cool to learn about some of the other stuff that we don't know about. I learned so much about my grandpa doing this project, because I didn't really know much about him. I didn't even know he was in the Army. So it's just so cool to learn more stuff. My Wall of Honor, I chose my grandpa, Gerald Wayne Anderson. He was in the Army. So my grandpa Wayne served during the Vietnam War era. In 1969, my grandpa voluntarily enlisted in the United States Army. He went to basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey. While there, he earned 2 awards. One was for the outstanding trainee, and the other was for the perfect score on his physical fitness test. After basic training, my grandpa was stationed at Fort Hamilton, New York Harbor. At Fort Hamilton, he served as an assistant chaplain and went to AIT, Advanced Infantry Training. For the next couple of years, my grandpa stopped active duty and went to the Army Reserve in Utah until 1975. He went to meetings once a month and traveled to different bases around the country for 2 weeks, for a 2-week active duty stay. His MOS, military occupation specialty during these years, was an assistant chaplain and a petroleum supply specialist, which was just like transporting petroleum. My grandpa has been a part of the American Legion Honor Guard for many years. He meets with other veterans to plan events and be a part of a 21-gun salute at veterans' funerals. So I just went over to my grandpa's house, and he had set up all these pictures and stuff. And I had questions, and I just interviewed him and just talked to him about it. It was just really, cool because I didn't know anything, and it was like, wow, my grandpa is in the military. He risked his life for this country, and so, yeah.
So a lot of it was done virtually this year. I bet in years past they have worked on it as a class, but this year it was just sent out to the parents and to us, and we worked on it at home. We would find out about a veteran in our family, or if we didn't know anybody, then we could just pick someone famous, someone that you could research online. And it was really cool. I got to learn about my great-great-grandpa, and I've heard a lot of good stories about other people, and then just walking in here every morning and just seeing all these stories from veterans' lives is really cool. It's really inspiring knowing that all these people have served our country in a way that makes a difference. The veteran I chose was Hugh Fairbanks Yates, and he worked in the U.S. Army Corps. My great-great-grandfather, Hugh Fairbanks Yates, served in the U.S. Army Corps. I already said that. During World War I and the Korean War. When he died, he had the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. He served as an accountant during World War I and the Korean War. My dad told me that since he grew up during the Great Depression, he couldn't have peanuts or cookies or root beer, all these treats that we have so often today. So when he grew up, he made sure the trunk of his car was filled with these items, and he would just hand them out to kids on the street to make sure everybody had the chance to have cookies and peanuts and root beer. My dad also told me that on his birthday he would always take my family to Check-A-Rama, and his advice to everybody was always eat the dessert first while you had your big appetite, and then go and eat some of the other buffet bars. At one point in his life, he had to travel to Oregon from Salt Lake City for military reasons, and he drove the entire way on a motorcycle with a sidecar with his wife. Thought that was interesting. He died from a stroke in 1997 at age 88, and he was buried at Camp Williams, and at his burial there was a 21-gun salute. His headstone says, "A friend to all," because although he served during 2 wars, that is a very small fraction of the service that he did to everybody around him in his life. So it's just really cool knowing. Until just a few years ago, I didn't know I had any ancestors that had been in the military. It was only until a few years ago when I sort of got into family history work. I would go on my dad's phone and I would look through, and I found him, and I'm like, hey, he's pretty cool. I would look through some of the stuff he did. My dad at that point told me the story about the motorcycle in the sidecar, and I thought that was really cool. And when I heard we were doing this Wall of Honor, I'm like, I know someone that I can do. I know someone I want to learn more about. So the night I worked on it, I called my grandma, and we just went through, and she told me stories about him, and it was just really a very cool experience for me. Finding out that I did have an ancestor that fought in a war. He might not have fought on foreign soil, but even as an accountant, that was a big part in the war, I bet. So figure out how you're linked to your ancestor and see if you can find anybody who can tell you more. You can probably search online on websites. I know there are certain places at like war monuments where you can search up veterans during that war. And just learn about them. Find out what their passions were, what they like to do apart from war stuff. I know that's what we're talking about is them being a veteran, but there's a lot more to their life than probably just that. So.
So the Wall of Honor is just how we represent our veterans and we support them because for all the stuff that they did for us. So when we do this, it's just a way of giving our thanks for what they did for our country and for us. All right, so my veteran is D. Bowen, and the branch in the military, he was in the U.S. Army. He served in World War II, and he got shot in the leg. He served in the South Pacific. He was awarded the Purple Heart, but after he was shot, he made a full recovery even though he said that he wouldn't. And he was also awarded the Medal of Valor. It's important because, like I was saying in the beginning, they did all of this stuff for a country, so if we talk bad about them, that's just disrespectful because they're the reason that they give us rights. And yeah.
This is my veteran. He was my uncle. His name is Todd. The branch of his military was the U.S. Army. Todd was born in December 31st, 1996. He died on November 25th, 2017. We call him Uncle Bubba, and he wanted to become a soldier when he was 8 years old. And after he was done with the Army, he wanted to become a police officer and have his own K-9. He was born and raised in Riverside, California. Fun facts about him are that he was 6'1", he was always goofy and gave the best hugs. He was a part of the Police Explorers and trained with police officers daily until he left for the Army. My uncle's name is placed on the memorial walls in Fort Bliss, Texas, and Ramona High School in Riverside, California, and in Fort Benning, Georgia. All of their fallen soldiers on their fallen soldiers' wall. We are all very proud of him. We miss him very much. When I was like 3, 4, I asked him to draw a picture. So he loved doing art. He went on Netflix and watched Bob Ross or YouTube, and he really loves to draw. And he drew me a Batman because I used to really like Batman. And he always used to throw me in the pool, even though I said, no, don't do it. The Wall of Honor is a very special thing because it honors all the veterans, and it's not very nice to talk mean things about them. And if you do, like what Manny said, it's very disrespectful, and it's just very special to some people. Some people don't even care about it, which is very messed up. The Wall of Honor is very special because it talks to all the other veterans that have served, even though if we didn't know them.
Wilson Warren.
And I'm Owen Warren.
And we're doing our Wall of Honor on Boyd Warren. He served in the National Guard for 11 years. He was a heavy equipment manager. He helped build scout camps and airports.
The Wall of Honor, it pays tribute to all of the veterans in the families of the people or families of students here, and just other veterans. And it tells stories of veterans so they can be remembered.
I'm Piper Jones, and I'm going to be talking about Chad Romney Sperry. So Chad is my cousin, and he was an Army server. He's still active and has 3 years that he could be called back to serve. So he was in satellites communication in the 82nd Airborne Division, and he is an airborne school graduate. He jumped out of 38 planes from 800 to 1,200 feet, which is not very high. I mean, for jumping out of a plane. And he had 40 seconds of fall time, so you have 6 seconds of free fall time, and the rest you kind of just prepare yourself for impact. He achieved 3 Army Accommodation Medals with 1 Sea Emblem, and that means that he helped his brigade or other higher brigades to achieve their mission. One cool thing is or not necessarily cool, but one thing that he did was he stayed awake for hours on end. And the longest functional hours that he stayed awake was 52 hours, which means he was up doing things. And the longest non-functional was 64 to 68 hours. He said that the only time he really stayed awake was during where you were at fields, but his boss would tell him that before a big mission, you needed to get lots of sleep and lots of naps in, because you wouldn't be able to get lots of sleep. And if you started falling asleep, then you would get down and do push-ups or run around the truck, which just means run around the camp or base. And he said that one of the hardest things for him to do was staying awake. One cool thing is they would send big vehicles like Hummers and stuff out of the back of planes. And so a Hummer was the smallest one, and it would have at least 3 big parachutes on it. So they would shoot it out of the back of the plane, and it would land, and then they would jump out right after it. So you would jump out one after another, so in 13 seconds. So yeah. One cool memory is that Chad comes to Powell with us every year, because it's my Jones family tradition, and he likes going and jumping off cliffs, and he would do backflips off cliffs. So yeah. So I think that having a Wall of Honor just shows respect to those who served for our country and for our freedom, because if we didn't have them going and fighting our wars and doing all of those dangerous things and risking their life for us, then we wouldn't be able to go the places we wanted to go or eat the food that we wanted to eat every time we were hungry, or go drive down the road to somewhere. And so I really appreciate
all of them who served, and I think the Wall of Honor really shows that, especially for the younger grades, so that they can tell, like, when they come that age, they can like learn to respect that.
His name was Herman H Stone, and he was in the Army National Guard. He was assigned to the 116th Engineer Company in Springville, Utah, and soon was moved to Spanish Fork, Utah. He helped build airstrips, supply roads, schools, recreational areas, and military posts. When there were disasters, he helped clean up and rescue stranded people.
I did my grandpa. So he was in the Korean War. His name was Nolan Skinner. He died about 1 month ago. He joined the U.S. Army in 1959, and he served in the U.S. Army from 1959 to 1962. While my grandpa was in the military, he took an 18-week auto repair course, a skill he would use for the rest of his life. Luckily, he made it back from the Korean War, and I knew him from 2009 to 2021. The time I remember knowing my grandpa, I knew that he was an amazing man. I'm so glad that I knew him the way I did. Thank you, Grandpa, for serving our country. I know he's not in person to hear that, but I just know that, like, his spirit could probably walk through the halls and just it'd catch his eye and he'd see it. Because I know that when someone goes, they're not really gone. They're there, but you never know.
So I picked Carl because he's my great-grandpa, and it's just the first thing that came to mind. So I asked my parents kind of about him, like what he did, and they told me that he was a Marine. He got to be the gunner, which is super cool. Okay, so I just kind of wrote him something, and I just said, thank you for your service in World War II. Yeah, he was in World War II. And you're very appreciated, and this country wouldn't be like it is without you, and thanks for everything. So I don't know a lot of stories, but I chose him because I didn't know a lot about him, because my dad's also a veteran, but I already kind of knew a lot of stories and stuff, so I want to like kind of research something new. So I chose my great-grandpa. So
the person I chose is my great-grandpa. His name is Norley Hall, and he was in the Marines, but I didn't go and visit him a lot because he lived in Springville and he died, I think, 3 years ago. But my little brother was really close with him, so like I'm just kind of sad that I didn't like get that chance to be that close with him. I just think that it's like you shouldn't be nervous, even I was sometimes to like, because you're always nervous to go talk to people that you haven't talked to in a while. But my advice is just you don't know how much time you have, so you might as well just make it the best you can and ask all the questions you want, because they're not going to be like, you shouldn't ask me about that, that's disrespectful. They're going to be very happy that you ask them that, because I bet that a lot of people who served in the war are very like happy to retell their stories because they went through a lot, and that's probably nice for them to like sort it out. So that's just what I think.
My veteran that I chose is her name's Kindy Erickson. She worked in the Army National Guard, and she's my aunt. She served in Afghanistan for 11 months, and while she worked there, she worked in a detention facility that was kind of like a prison. She had to stare down with a detainee before the interrogator got in the room, which she said was pretty intense. Her head wasn't covered, so I'm pretty sure she wasn't being very disrespectful. On the base, there were local Afghanistanis that were allowed into work. One time, she came across a group of men, and as she walked towards them, she greeted them in their native tongue, and they went crazy as she walked through them. Not the smartest thing to do. This is a picture of her doing an IV in training, and there's a picture of her with a camel and next to an armored truck. So it was pretty cool to be talking to her about what she did in Afghanistan.
Okay, his name is William, and he was in the Navy, World War II. He was my great-grandpa. He was born on March 24th, 1927. He was married to Coral, his wife. They raised 4 children. He worked as an accountant and a general. He served his country in the Navy. He was in the World War II. He died in 2006, right before I was born. You know that he tried to help our country, and he was there when people were wanting to have war. And so he was there. I haven't really heard that much stories about him, but I know that he was trying his best to make America free.
His name was William G. Cook, and our mom called him and was asking stories, and we picked out this story because all the other ones were more violent. But should we read it? Okay. So his name is William G. Cook. He served in the Army. He served in the Korean War in the early 1950s. My grandpa was on a rest and relax break on a plane from the base of to Japan. All of a sudden, an engine shut off. The plane started tipping. The pilot then turned off one engine on the other side to balance out the plane. They couldn't go any higher since 2 engines were out. A lot of people were scared. Some were calm, some were napping, and some were a little fidgety. The plane landed safely, and he is still alive today. And now he likes to play card games with us, since he did that when he was bored when he was on a R&R break. And so, yeah. It's pretty amazing. Sometimes people ask, do you have a veteran you know? And we say, yeah. And we sometimes tell stories. It's just so cool because he was part of a war that made us be free. And he just wanted everyone to be free, and I just like that about him.
This wall right here, it means so much to me. Why? Because it celebrates the people that served to protect our rights, like what we're able to do every day that maybe some people can't. We can pick what clothes we wear in the morning. We can decide what we want to eat for breakfast. We can decide if we want to bike to school, walk to school, or have our parents take us, or take ourselves if you have a driver's license, but we're not going to get into that. So it means that we are recognizing the fact that freedom isn't at all free. Like, I've been thinking in my head a lot, everything has a cost, either money, service, goods. It's not normal for some people to make the decisions that we can make every day. We can elect presidents and senators, ambassadors, people that help us.
make these decisions while some people can't. I think that it's great that we are free, but I don't think it's great that everyone else isn't.
My name is Henry Zogg, and I have my grandma and my cousin in the military. My grandpa, before he got put in a home, he was able to tell us about a whole bunch of airplanes he flew when he was in the Air Force, and it was pretty cool. And I don't know very much about my cousin. I've met him, but I don't know a whole lot about him. Okay, so this is my grandpa. This is the plane he flew a lot in. This is my grandpa and my cousin. You can see them both right there on both of them. And then this is my grandpa when he was younger, when they only had black and white photos. So that's when he was like newer to the military. And then right here is my cousin. You can see that there's my grandpa and there's my cousin. And then you can see his family here. They have actually 2 daughters. I went to the baby blessing just a couple months ago. I've heard a lot about the planes he used to fly. He used to fly this big cargo plane that was like a support plane, and he flew over, I believe, 700 hours in it. Well, we've had been to Air Force museums with him, and he'd been able to tell us about a whole bunch of planes that he flew.
This is my great-grandpa, Patrick H. Fenton. He served in the Army. He served in World War II in Korea. His rank was a major. He was awarded 5 Bronze Stars. He took his responsibilities very seriously and loved his country. He was a really good grandpa. He went to the ROTC and became an officer. He fought all over Europe. He was given the rank major by General Patton. After that, he went to law school. Then he got married. He joined the National Guard in Cedar City. His group got called to fight in Korea, and then they fought, and then he came home and he continued his law stuff, and then he died. So when his group went to Korea, he was like the only one in his group that had previous training, and that he was able to help them, and I think all of them in his troop survived. The reason why it's really special for us is because we get to choose a veteran and we get to talk about them and share their experiences and just appreciate all they do for us.